Cool.
Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to We Have a Take the What podcast. I am Tara Bowen Biggs, joined as always by Rose Harding. Hello, Rose.
Hello, Tara. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic today. And today, joining us, we have a first time guest. Many Blazer fans already know Brandon Goldner Mullen, but it is this first time we are having him on the podcast. So, Brandon, it's been a long time. Welcome. We're so glad to have you.
What up, Tara? What up, Rose? Thank you. I appreciate it. I feel like, Tara, you and I have done podcasts before, just not this one, right?
Yeah, we've done them
Yeah.
together, for
Yeah.
sure. We just on in this
Not this one.
version we haven't done it. Yeah.
And Rose, you and I have not done a podcast together yet until now.
No, you are one of the few people that I will say that I met in person before I met
Ooh,
in the internet world or the podcast world. And that's, I think, kind of rare now.
that's cool. Look at us going analog. That's how you do it.
I think I met you at the Dame game last
Yeah.
season. And you had
Yep.
your bike.
Yeah, I did. Yep. I love that photo too that they did of the third bench, and I'm holding up the bike, and I saw y'all taking the photo as I was biking by. I'm like, wait, I gotta get it. So yeah, very glad I did that.
It's a really good photo, and it really encapsulates maybe the highest point of that season last year. So
Yeah,
it's nice.
yeah, that was a good game. I enjoyed that.
Apparently, Milwaukee games in Portland are going to be good games for a while.
I
That's right.
know. I wonder, yeah, it's strange. I wonder if I'm sure there's not, but if there's some kind of weird, I don't know, some juju around it. And the Blazers, they lost their franchise star, but they get these completely meaningless wins. Like
We
maybe
get
that's the trade off. I don't know.
one win a year we can count on.
Yeah, chalk it up.
Okay, so since your first time on the podcast, we decided we would do an icebreaker today. And I was inspired by a conversation Tara and I had earlier today um, with this icebreaker. So here it is. If you could have one thing named after you, what would you want it to be?
Yeah, I really wish y'all would have sent this to me in advance, giving me some time to think it. No, they did. Uh, Yeah, I've thought about this, and inspired by the Damian Lillard Scholars, where Damian Lillard and Portland State University teamed up to send students from the East Bay area $25,000 a year to go to PSU, plus room and board and clothes and supplies and stuff, like on top of that 25K. I would like to have some kind of a fellowship named after me. I think that would be cool, something that you're helping people. And then the question is what? Like, would it be a scholarship or a fellowship? And lately I've been really, really interested in transportation planning. So my Brandon Mullen fellowship would be to help kids that would otherwise maybe not have an opportunity learn the ins and outs of transportation planning, and particularly community focused transportation planning, so that one day we may have cities where people don't feel like they're going to get killed if they're traveling by any way other than a car. So that was my response to that. So yeah.
I love
That's
that. It's a super that's a serious good one.
It's very
that's
specific too,
seriously
isn't it?
that's seriously a great one. I can't believe I have to go after that.
Sorry.
Don't worry, I'm sure mine is worse. Mine is worse. So Tara, go ahead. What would you want named after
I,
you?
I think what we need to focus on, folks, is we're going to demonstrate a real range in ways that you can approach this question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know quite how to explain this concisely, but so I'll try. When I was first learning all about the NBA and how trades and how the CBA worked and like how all that worked, I used to religiously listen to the Dunked On podcast, Nate Duncan and
Yes, Daniel
Danny.
Rue.
Yeah. But this was like 10 years ago. And I would like listen to every word and I'd stop and I'd rewind and da da da. And they would get into all this cap talk and they would do this pretend like where they would draft or where they were pretend they were different teams and they would switch and trade. And they kept talking about this person, Emily. And I'm like, who is Emily? And they would be like, well, then we can get it through the Emily. Emily can get that for us. We could be able to get that because we have Emily. And I was like, who is Emily? It's driving me
I
crazy.
see where this is
So
going.
I finally realized that Emily, not a person, stands for the mid-level exception, the MLE. So when I was thinking about this question, Rose, I was thinking about the fact that my name, when it gets translated by like Google Translate, or like when I'm doing a transcript of and I say my name, Google calls my name Terrible and Big. So Terrible and Bigs
Oh no.
turns into Terrible and Big. So I would like to have like some kind of a contract named the Terrible and Bigs contract, so that someday when people are talking about it on podcasts, some person like me will think they're talking about the Terrible and Big contract, and then they'll find out like me someday that it was actually something that they had misheard, and somebody can live with that. So anyway, the Terrebowen Biggs contract. Hopefully somebody from the NBA is listening. The Terrible and Big contract.
Well, this is a very wow, that was a journey.
This like the Ben Simmons signed to and recently waived from the Terrible and Big contract, like a max contract that you regret later.
Maybe
man.
when they bring back the what is it, the player coach that I want the NBA to bring back, they can call it the Terrebonne Big contract.
Except for that, it'll hopefully be small.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't have to go down this road, but why don't they have player coaches? Why not?
I
Let's
don't
do
know.
it. I
I
don't
was
get it.
talking about this a couple episodes ago where I was like, we should have like more opportunities for veterans to contribute in a way that isn't minutes, because we all know that they're valuable, but everybody chases minutes, so they all chase youth. And so there's not as many opportunities for guys to get their full 10 years of service so they can retire.
I also think this is a great opportunity for Chauncey Billups to really put his money where his mouth is, you know? Like, get out. If you want to see them communicating and playing defense, get on the court, man. Lace them up. Come on.
We talk about all that all the time, about how he clearly just wants to be out there playing. And I think that's perfect.
Yeah. Okay, I have one thing. I will share mine, and then we can throw this one in the bin forever because I'm going to get torched for this one. So if I could have one thing named after me, it would be a very specific pizza.
That works. Okay, what's
like
on
it.
it?
No, okay. Here's where you all are going to flame me. But I said what I said. I want a thin crust pizza with pepperoni, jalapeno, and pineapple. That's my pizza.
That's a
sounds pretty good.
perfectly good pizza.
I know, but people love to like hate on people who like pineapple, but here's my thing. Spicy sweet is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And in some ways, pepperoni and like, you know, like the Hawaiian pizza is like ham and pineapple. Pepperoni is better to me because it brings a little bit of that spice to it. And so do the jalapenos to like contrast with that pineapple. And so like, yeah, a lot of people are going to hate on a pineapple pizza, but yeah, I said it. The Rose pizza is a pineapple, pepperoni, jalapeno pizza.
I would go for that. And I also, another thing I don't understand is why it's so trendy to hate on pineapple. Like, why? Like, it's good.
Pineapple's good.
It's
Is there
delicious.
is there like a, does anyone know, is there like a reason why suddenly putting pineapple on a pizza was completely off limits culturally, just all of a sudden for no reason?
I think
don't
for some
know.
people it might be texture. Like some people think it's slimy, maybe. Not if you cook it right.
I feel like somebody that had a platform just had a really strong stance. And then the people who had a similar stance just like all got on board, and we all just sat there and were like, yeah, whatever. Because I think that sounds delicious. And actually down the street from me at Pizza Jerk, they have a pizza called It's Always Sunny in Cully. And it has what are the peppers? Little mamas. They're
Oh, little Mama Lils.
Mama Lils, yeah.
Yeah.
Mama Lils and pepperoni and pineapple and a drizzle of honey, and it's so good.
Delightful. I gotta go over there and apparently get that pizza and then convince them to change it a little bit and name it after me.
Yeah.
Let's get our elected officials on that. No spoilers, but just saying.
Yeah, seriously. Because that's what they should be doing is like regulating the names of pizzas.
Yes.
I agree.
We could give them
I
that
feel
to
like
do.
Portland as a new government can't like the new elected officials. We have like more, right? We have more city councilors now than we used to before. I say we. I'm not even in Portland right now. Y'all do. So yeah, come on, get on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Well, so Brandon, since it's your first time, I'll say that again. Um, we also, when we have guests on for the first time, like to know kind of more about your basketball story and like how you got into basketball. Who you're a fan of. I think we know who you're a fan of. Sometimes we have people who don't always start with the Blazers, though. So yeah, what can you tell us about how you came to love and be talking and writing about basketball?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to preface by saying that we have these stories that we tell ourselves and that we tell others a lot, and they become very familiar. And I'm going to challenge myself to try to just kind of re-remember how I got into basketball. And I think it's because my dad would watch the Blazers on TV, and I would kind of sit next to him and watch him watch, and not really knowing what it was at first. And not to get too dark, but I remember he would get pretty upset when they'd lose, but he'd also get like really jazzed when they'd win, which is strange because then like later in life, I never knew him to be that big of a basketball fan. So via my dad, then I played basketball as a little kid, and basketball became kind of my escape and my retreat, and what allowed me to get more comfortable socializing with people, as I was not a very comfortable social creature and had a speech impediment and this, that, and the other. So I grew up playing, and yeah, collected basketball cards. Do want to make mention that I had in first grade the longest collection of 100 things. We were challenged to bring 100 of something to class, and I brought 100 basketball cards. We lined them all up, and like some people had collections that were not 100 of any given thing, and I had 100 basketball cards easily, had thousands of them. So anyway, longest collection in first grade. Just I just I
Love
want
that.
some recognition for that. Yeah.
Okay, so when I first introduced you, I was so excited to like just get us all going and talking and remembering that you have a new name, which is very exciting. And so I totally forgot to say that you're with the We Love Blazers podcast, and you also are you an editor or a writer on Blazers Edge or both?
Yes, I'm an editor at Blazers Edge
Okay.
for the second time, which is yeah, it's good to come home again.
Well, I don't know if your podcast partner told you this, but Connor was recently on our podcast and he
Yes.
read us a piece that he wrote in second grade that was a speech that he gave about Brandon Roy. And so I am thrilled to know that we got a little gem of a Brandon memory of your 100 cards that you brought in first grade. I love that.
Well, can I have a point of order here? Because this is the same mistake that we made last time when Connor was here. It's we like the Blazers.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Although we also do love them, and
Right.
yeah.
But
Uh,
but there's a heart in your like
yes,
logo.
there is a logo which I made myself somehow. It's like a bee, but also a heart. Because I didn't know how else to visually demonstrate like. I mean, thumbs up would have been the other one. I just, that's too Facebook, isn't it? Everybody, like, come on, like. So I thought, heart. Everyone knows what that means, but you're right. Like, maybe it should be love. Maybe, yeah. I don't
Are
know.
you maybe you can like advance it from like to love as your
Well,
relationship with the Blazers deepens?
as it deepens, it evolves. Actually, it's funny because that podcast was originally I Like the Blazers. So I had been co-hosting the Trailcasters with Keith Feltner Smith, and then split off to do something else. I couldn't think of what to name it. I was like, I don't know, like the something about Trail or something about Blazers, something about Portland or something. I'm like, you know what? I like the Blazers. That's it. That's the name. We're gonna go with it. And then when Ryan Whitledge joined me to co-host, became We Like the Blazers, and now it remains We Like the Blazers with Connor. Yeah, so fun podcast evolution story. Tara, I mean, I know that this isn't about me, but let's make this about you for a second, because I just gave a little bit of my podcast story. What's your podcast hosting story? Because this is not
Oh.
your first rodeo.
Wow. So the first podcast that I did was on Blazers Edge, and Dave Deckard reached out to me and connected me with a woman named Joe. And Joe, people who've been around might remember Joe because she was the person behind the Stay LA party when we were trying to get LA to stay in Portland and not leave. She threw a big party, and lots of people came came to that. And actually, LaMarcus Aldridge, LA, LaMarcus Aldridge noticed it. And after it was all over, he contacted her and flew her to San Antonio and like took her out to dinner as a thank you. So anyway, she was
Hmm.
my first podcast co-host, and it was just because Dave was like, "Why don't you guys give this a try?" And so that's how I started. And then it evolved into doing it with co-hosting with Danny for all those years. And then I was just ready to go off and do my own thing. And so that's when We Have a Take started. And I've had a couple different co-hosts with that too. And I've had Rose for a couple years now, 2, 3 years. How many
Yeah.
seasons?
I
I think
started as a super sub, and now I'm just in part of the starting lineup.
yeah, yeah,
Isn't that how it happens often though? Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's you just hang around long enough and something else.
Right. Okay, so I interrupted your story. You were talking about you were played basketball. So what was your position?
I started as I was like a tall kid, and so I started as like a post. And that did not serve me well as I got into high school. Let me tell you, when I wanted to learn more of the guard oriented skills, like the ball handling and the shooting, they didn't let me do it. And I was, a freshman who was like at that point, like maybe 6 foot. And I am still kind of bummed about that because I think that would have changed my relationship with the game a little bit. So anyway, played for a few more years, and since then I've played recreationally. In fact, Cassie and I just did some runs at the Yale Recreation Center with some people. It was super fun yesterday. Cassie played in college. So that's my relationship with playing. One more story about playing is that I mentioned early it was kind of something that I could retreat into, something that brought me like comfort, I would say. And when I was in third grade, I haven't always had like the easiest time with emotional regulation. I feel things very strongly, and particularly as a young child, was not very good at identifying what I was feeling or managing it. I was getting unruly, and my teacher, I thought she was going to send me to the counselor's office, and instead she said, "Brandon, I want you to take a basketball and go outside and don't come back until you feel better." I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah." And so I just went outside and just like shot hoops for like 15, 20 minutes. And I eventually calmed down, felt better, came back and was like fine the rest of the day. So I actually still, now that I'm thinking about that memory, I still feel that way about basketball today. Like I felt it yesterday even. You get in this kind of Zen meditative / exercisey headspace where it's like you're sweating and you're moving and you're reading and reacting. And I don't know, I feel very comfortable on the court and being able to kind of see stuff in my peripherals and settle into it while still working really, really hard. And it's just, I don't know, like, yeah, I would say that I definitely am in love with the game of basketball, which helps fuel my Blazers passion for sure. Yeah.
I
I
love
don't
that.
know, where am I going with this? Like, help me out. I
We
fell
are
down a hole.
we are no, I think that I just wanted to address like you were saying about like you still feel that. And I'm somebody who is very much, I think that adults really need to know what does that to them, because as kids we do all of these different things, we have all these different activities which are meant to like enrich our lives as kids, and then we grow up and it's kind of like you're done with that, you know? And it's like, I
Yeah.
think it's really important as adults that we continue to find those things that give us that type of like, ability. Like I played soccer for years, and for this was like the same thing for me. It was just a thing to go do to just like get out of my head, get out of everything that was going on in the world. And I think that's I think it's a great thing to bring up. Um, when did you first start writing or talking about the
Hmm.
Blazers? How did that come about?
How did that come about? And this, gosh, it's annoying that I can't. But I think that I started writing for Rip City Project in the early 2010s. I think I'm feeling there's something in the back of my mind telling me that doesn't feel quite right. But I
We
think
don't
that
have a
is where it
fact
started.
checker, so whatever you say
Yeah.
will be fine.
we're also where I mean we're living in like a post-factual society anyway, so I could just say whatever I want, and as long as I say it convincingly, right? Like it'll be fine. I think I started writing for Rip City Project, which is a Blazers site, and then I think I sort of made my way to Blazers Edge, and started with the kind of the really writing Blazer stuff was doing recaps for the games. So there was like a year and a half where I was like on recap duty every single game, which I'll tell you, like that's a little stressful. Like I still do recaps today, and it's a little stressful to do it once, and it's like really stressful to do it the entire season because you just got to be like on alert and you're watching and taking notes, and I don't know. So yeah, that's how I started. And then during that same time, again, like maybe mid 2010s, feels right to me, early to mid 2010s, I guested on the Blazers Edge Weekend podcast with Chris Lucia. And then kind of like you, Rose, I sort of hung around long enough to where I like got like absorbed into the co-host duty. And so that was the beginning of my podcast journey. And then again, I talked about the Trailcasters, and now we like the Blazers. Yeah, so there's been a lot of like Blazers Edge connectivity in my writing and podcasting and Blazers editing. And then also my, quote unquote Twitter personality, I think has been a thing for a long time. And I'll also say, I feel like, I don't know what it is about this podcast here. It's like feeling very vulnerable today, but the way that I present myself on social media, not so much today, but in years past was like not really the person that I wanted to be, I don't think. And I think I said not as much today. I still struggle with that a little bit, and people have called me on it, which I appreciate. It's like, kind of, someone told me like Stevie Cozens, who has contributed to Blazers Edge and does scouting in New Zealand. He's like, Brandon, you're kind of a reply guy. I'm like, what do you mean by that? He's like, you want to like get in there and like just kind of mix it up and kind of piss people off a little bit. And I was like, when he said that, I was like, no, that's not me. And like, wait a minute. Yeah, it is. So that's, I will say, like, my relationship with like Blazers vis-a-vis social media has been very strong, and I think not always good. I would say though that, and I would be curious what you two think, because I mean we all follow each other on Blue Sky. I have tried, and I'm trying very intentionally to move toward what like the person I would like to be. And I think that, you can't divorce yourself on social media from you as a person. I mean, those are actions that you're taking by typing stuff and saying stuff. And like, that's part of you. And I think that going really deep, I think I was doing this cognitive disassociation thing where it's like, well, that's like the Blazers Brandon over there. But then I'm in my life and with my relationships and in my work, but that's still me, So, yeah, I don't know. Like that just went real deep real quick, but that's, yeah, there you go. More than you wanted to know about that.
That's exactly what we wanted to know. I mean, we didn't know it was there, but I think that that's like a really valuable way to reflect on your relationship with something. Like sometimes you see a part of yourself and you're like, is that me? Do I want to be that? Basketball can, like, some people are different people on the court than they are in real life. Like we see that with players all the time. And you were a different person in your Blazers social persona than you maybe thought of yourself. And so you had to decide, is that me? And if it is me, do I want to stay that way? Which I think is like an important conversation to have with yourself about all kind of aspects of your life. So I thank you for sharing that with us. That's deep.
And I would add that I appreciate the vulnerability, and I feel really glad that you felt like you could go there with us, because I think one of the things that I strongly believe about this podcast is that we try to get to the heart of who people are and why they do the things that they do. I could not very well talk X's and O's, but we could try that. But to us, that's not what our favorite part of the game is. Our favorite part of the game is the people who are playing it and who they are and how they got there. but it also to me it expands to the fan base too, and who we are as a fan base. Like I have so many relationships that I never would have had because of Blazers and because of basketball, because at one point
Yeah.
I decided that I was going to take on this persona of teen mom, and I like met all, like both of you are people that I met through Twitter. I mean, I've had so many, I've been so grateful to have so many positive interactions with other Blazer fans because we've like come together for this common thing, but we're more than just that common thing. We bring our whole selves. So thank you for bringing your whole self. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. And so, all to say, to kind of bookend my relationship with the Blazers and basketball and the team, yeah, it's still it continues to be something that is like, I mean, gives me energy. Like I mean, there are times when I'm writing something, frankly, that's I'm aggregating someone else's work. I'm like, this is kind of a slog, isn't it? But even even in doing that, you get these little like moments of when you're writing and you get to a little panache, a little zhuzh of some, I don't know, rhetorical something. And you're like, oh, that's kind of fun. That's kind of cool, isn't it? And then I don't know. So yeah, and then watching the team, like I've basically only ever watched professional basketball. I've watched a little bit of women's college basketball lately, not really men's college basketball and not international ball. So I'm really like an NBA focused person. And maybe it's just like, I don't know, like the pace, and I feel like I understand the pace and the rules and the rhythm of the game. And it is different in different leagues, in whether different countries or different levels of competition or whatever. Yeah. And it continues to be really fun. And so I hope that I can keep doing it and keep learning. And also to your point about like, I'm not an X's and O's guy, and I've tried and I continue try. I'm going to keep trying, but it's hard for me. I think some people have a natural gift. I mean, you mentioned, Danny Meringue, I think is someone who it both practiced and has a gift for seeing stuff as it happens on the court. There's some people at Blazers Edge who are good at that too. And I'm just not as good at that. But doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. And doesn't mean that I don't have something to say about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're recording this on All-Star break weekend, actually the day that the All-Star game is going to happen. And I'm so checked out of All-Star and have been for a few years. I don't have a bunch of All-Star topics planned for this. It's just to give folks who are listening a point in time of when we were recording this. And so we're going to be looking forward a little bit about what we're going to be looking forward to as the Blazers play out the last third of the season. Before we do that, Brandon, what just thoughts on how the season has gone? Is it how you expected it would go? Is it unexpected? What are some of your thoughts and feelings about the season so far?
It's complicated because I think generally I don't feel super great about the season. And I think mostly because two big reasons. One, I feel it's important that the team get a relatively decent lottery pick. But then two, and maybe more important than that, like I would like to see the younger players do and show and grow something. And we've seen a little bit of that, especially with, and maybe we'll talk about it with Tamani Kamara. And we've seen some progression from Scoot Henderson. But on the whole, it's been a strange season. And even like I found it difficult to enjoy, the win streak, the 6 in a row, 10 of 11 was tough in that context where it's like, oh man, like you're closer to 21st best odds than you're to 5th best odds now. That's rough. And you're playing Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant a lot of minutes, and now Shaden Sharp is on the bench because he didn't play good enough defense. And do other people who are still starting, do they play great defense? And so this season has been strange where I thought maybe I would see more opportunity and growth from some of the younger players. And then I also thought the team would be worse in their standings. So there's still a lot of good stuff in there and a lot of interesting stuff. But yeah, to be honest, on the whole, it's been probably like a slight maybe disappointment for me. I don't know how you two feel about it.
It's the old Facebook status. It's complicated. Go ahead, Rose.
Like that like relationship I think a lot of Blazers fans have right now, and this is like a little bit like when you're rebuilding, you're a little bit in the upside down world, right? Where like good is bad, bad is good, and people can have complicated feelings about that because normally in the normal times, winning is good and feels good, and you don't have to feel complicated about it, but
Yeah.
it's all about like in this moment, winning can feel good, but do I feel good about it a week from now, 2 weeks from now? Because you're trying to build towards something different. And I don't think you're alone in feeling complicated. I have complicated feelings. I don't think they're quite as complicated as yours, but like I'll say like I've enjoyed most of these wins because I've seen a lot of really good things from our young guys. The one win I will say where I was like devastated watching the whole thing play out was when we lost or when we beat Charlotte. And I was
Yeah.
like, we tried so hard to beat a team that was trying to lose and we only barely won. That felt like hard and we played our vets big minutes and I was like, what are we doing? Like if I'm not going to get to see any of these young guys that you've told me are like I should be excited to see play, like what is this? But I'm trying to put some of that behind me and perhaps this is a good time for us to kind of pivot to the next topic which we're hoping to talk to you about is things that we are looking forward to for the second half of the season. Technically, it's not the second half. I always think it's weird we talk about it as the second half, but it's usually like a little bit past the halfway point when we do All-Star Weekend. But for all intents and purposes, the second half of the season.
It's the second half. We all think of it as the second half. I think the players do too, because they get a little summer break in there or whatever, a little winter break. I don't know what you'd call it.
Just happens to be a smaller half.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which it's a strategy that I employ at work where I will take my lunch from 1 to 2. So when I come back, I have fewer hours to work.
It's
It works out
brilliant.
great. Come back, there's only 3 more hours left. Yeah, no, it's good.
I love that.
Who wants to kick us off with what they're looking forward to?
Would you like to go first, or do you want to break from talking for a minute?
I declare.
Why don't
Sure.
you kick us off?
Okay. I mean, this is probably one that both of you are thinking or maybe have on your list. And by the way, peek behind the curtain, y'all. We're coordinating this a little bit. And I was like, do we want to like share the things that we're looking forward to? Tara's like, nah, like we'll just run with it. It'll be great. So I'm sure some of these may be overlapping. But real simple, 2 words, 2 syllables. Kling Kong. I'm looking forward to Donovan Clingan. And to see the way he played last game, 20 rebounds, 17 points, 2 blocks, 31 minutes. He hasn't played 30 minutes consecutively yet in his young career. And I get it. Like he's enormous and he's huffing and puffing. And there's, the NBA game is different than the college game. It's longer. There are more games. I completely understand. You have to move around more. But I'm really, really excited for Donovan Clingan. And it was such a great way, wasn't it, to go into the All-Star break with like that game where it's like, oh yeah. Also, the game before that, I think, had a career high in points, and I can't remember off the top of my head. And both of these games coming against the best center in the league in Nikola Jokic. And so that to me is, I think everybody in Portland is looking forward to seeing Donovan Clingan in the second half of the year. But yeah, like getting his legs under him, getting his kind of his NBA cardio more where it needs to be. He already has fantastic defensive instincts. I think he can become an even better screen setter than he is now. I mean, if just not because he's, again, 7'2" and enormous. But I'll stop talking. For me, it's first one with a bullet was Donovan Clingan.
Right on. That sounds great.
The path is certainly paved for us to see a lot of him, considering like we saw like some injuries. Aiton, unfortunately, is what he's going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks. 4 weeks that's like eternity in basketball terms. Like we're going to see a lot of Donovan Clingan, and we're also going to see a lot of, I think, some weird center minutes just in general.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It'll be weird and good. And obviously you don't want DeAndre Ayton to have a calf injury. But I mean, Connor said it on our last podcast too, and I hadn't really thought about it, but we're getting into the Joe Cronin making a phone call territory, and then guys are just like missing time. So reevaluated in a month. Like not even like we may have seen the last game that DeAndre Ayton plays this season, which is again a bummer because he was playing so well. By the way, like got nominated for NBA Player of the Week. Like way to go, DeAndre Ayton. But yeah, I'm excited for more Donovan Clingan. I just, yeah, would like to see him and also like to see him struggle more. I want to see him play more minutes. I want to see him get gassed. I want to see him get fouled out, right? Like, I want to see him go through the fires of that any new NBA player goes through. It's going to be exciting for me. I'm going to be looking forward to that.
I thought you were going to say the fires of Mount Doom, and I was going to get really excited.
The fires of Mount Doom. Absolutely. Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's, yeah.
Rose, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So this is something that I bet none of you are looking forward to. Um, but I am because so when we get to the second half of the season, one, injuries are sort of aligning so that like the conditions are a little bit different than we saw at the beginning of the season. But also we have tended to see in these development years, guys get maybe not totally shut down if they're healthy, but they'll be like their minutes will reduce. I expect Ant to play fewer minutes. I expect to see more of the guys in the mid to the end of the bench so that, the front office gets a look at them. But I am very interested to see creative lineups and also maybe some of these
Mm.
guys playing in like a role that isn't what we typically think of them as their first role, but maybe their second or their third. Like one of the things that I'm thinking about is how when we played the Rockets, I talked about this with Tara a while back. When we played the Rockets, Denny guarded Şengün, right? He took the center assignment.
That's
And
right.
granted,
Yeah.
it makes sense, right? Because they both have like kind of that EuroLeague experience. He's a far more active like center than some of our centers are typically used to guarding. Um, but like, who else has something that we are like some skill set that we're interested in seeing what it looks like in the second half of the season? I feel like the second
Mm.
half of the season is where you get to see some of the lab. What are the things that we kind of see in these guys or like see potential in, or we get maybe they do in practice, but they don't do in a real game? Like, what are some of those things? Because I think we're going to get a look at some of them. I don't know what they are, but you know, it's interesting. It's fun.
I
Yeah.
like that. I do think like the kind of the controlled chaos of like these players have never played together before, but like something weird might happen uh, is really fun. And again, it's like it's one of those things that wish we would have seen more of it to this point. And yes, I agree with you. We're going to see more of it. It is, yeah. It's like I don't know, keeps things interesting.
I took this assignment a little bit different or let's just say I made this assignment really hard on myself because every time I came up with something that I would wanted to look forward to, I'd go to myself, yeah, but we don't know if that's actually going to happen. And
That's
because like
okay.
just so many things happen. So I was like, oh, I want to see Scoot like develop into this leadership role. And then I was like, but what if Anthony continues to be the start and be like so anyway, I kept coming up with all these things that weren't working for me. So my answers are a little bit different. And one of the things that I was thinking of that I'm really glad about for the second half of the season is I'm really glad that we're not the team that traded Luka Doncic.
Ooh,
Because nobody's looking
ouch.
at you that hard.
Right, exactly. That everybody is like the microscope is off. Nobody's looking at us. Everybody's turned to look over there, and we're
Jody Allen's like, whoo,
yes.
whoo. Joe Cronin's like, ah, oh, it wasn't me.
And you know what it did? It made me go into it made me go into I was curious about like what would the and what how would it be analogous to what the Blazers did or didn't do? So Luka was in his seventh season when he got traded. Nobody was expecting it. He gets traded to the Lakers. I went to see like what if Damian Lillard had gotten like surprise traded in the middle of his seventh season, and that was the season that they went to the Western Conference Finals.
Oh, wow.
So I was just like, whoa, that would have been a whole that would have been a whole different story. I mean, I know that there were people at that time who were like looking at Damian Lillard saying, do we really want to, is the team really going to invest in him for the future? Or is this the time? A lot more people were saying trade CJ, but there was a small component that was saying, or do they need to move on and try to find another superstar? So that is not really a thing I'm looking forward to for the rest of the season. I'm just looking forward to not being the team that everybody has opinions about. And I'm looking forward to the fact that we're past the trade deadline and we can stop worrying about that and we can just focus
Mm.
on who the players are. But then, of course, my little brain goes, but we're not sure. Are we going to watch a bunch of 10-day guys for the rest of the season? Or are we? Because what I want to say is I'm excited to watch the players who are actually going to be on the team playing more. But I just could
Yeah.
not say that with confidence because I don't know. It could all change. We could have, 10-day guys from here on out.
Can I share a hot take I have about the Dallas Luka Lakers
Sure.
thing?
Yeah. Let it
And
fly.
I'm not saying this is the case. However, doesn't it feel like there's something beneath the surface of that trade? Something maybe like billionaire handshakey beneath the surface. There's no good way to justify what the Dallas Mavericks did. I don't
And
think.
how they did it.
And how they did
how
it.
they did it. They didn't shop him is the thing that I
Right.
think is the most fishy.
It's really, really strange. And it doesn't really align with any of the steps they took before the trade happened. It like they refunded their season ticket holders who wanted to get a refund. It's just really weird. So all to say, I'm not saying that there was some secret backroom cabal of billionaires like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And I don't know where like the Buss family and the whoever is the majority owner of the Mavs family, where their money is or where they get their money. I'm just saying, like, would it shock us if like 10 years from now or 5 years from now, it like came out that there was like just something beneath the table that's below the other table that was like so under the it just feels weird. Anyway, that's my hot take.
I think the majority owner of the Mavs now is a Vegas person, like someone who
They own
has all their money and
casinos.
yeah, they own casinos. And
Okay.
so I'm like, oh, that is historically an upstanding group of folks where no crime has ever
Yeah.
been committed.
Well,
But
yeah. I mean, also then that's a good point. Then that makes me think about it feels a little bit like Clay Bennett buying the Sonics and then like immediately shipping them to Oklahoma City. Like, is this a play to pivot them from Dallas to Las Vegas? And I think I've heard some people write about that and they've come out and been like, no, like we're going to be in Dallas. Like, I don't know what's going on there. Just anyway, yeah, not just weird. And I agree with you, Tara. Super glad it wasn't us. Very glad about that.
I mean, we spend a lot of time trying to understand what our owner's motivation is, but this just adds so many more levels of complexity that I just can't even imagine if I was having to spend the rest of my season figuring that out.
well, and I felt really bad for those fans. So I think I approach all of this as like a fan. If I were a fan of that franchise, like they all went to bed. Like if this trade was announced kind of late for Central Time
They got
Zone.
tucked in. They were snuggling with their cats, and
They woke up in the morning and Luka Doncic was a Laker. I would have been pissed if that had happened to Damian Lillard. And like I know Terry, you were talking about it strictly in this linear fashion of like seventh year. But what if it was the year after we had gone to the Western Conference Finals? Because that's basically what the Mavericks did. They went to the finals and then what? Then they traded the guy that like carried them there? That like if as a Portland fan, if they had traded Dame the year after we had gone to the Western Conference Finals, I would have freaked out. Like just purely
yeah.
from a fan perspective, without trying to like
Yeah.
be digging too into it, like I would have freaked out.
Well, when I initially looked at it, I like counted wrong. And so that was initially the year. And that was the bubble summer that we had Dame in the bubble. And imagine if Dame had been traded somewhere else and done the bubble for somebody else. That would have been just all kinds of revisionist history. So anyway, that's my answer. But we all brought two things to talk about. So Brandon, how about you? What's another thing that you're looking forward to for the rest of the season?
It's funny because I intentionally only brought one thing, and I was going to allow myself to like listen and read and react. And so I'm going to share this, and I promise that I don't mean it as pessimistically as it may sound, because it just came in listening to both of you. I'm excited, and maybe it won't happen this season, but I'm excited for the Blazers to have a different owner. So we just got word that all of the franchises have been valuated, and the Blazers evaluated at what was it, like 3.5 billion with a B, which is a lot. We also know that this is going a little bit outside of my basketball expertise, but hang with me for a second. We know that the Celtics are for sale. And the Celtics just won a title, and the Celtics are in a big East Coast city, and the Celtics have a bright future. And so when they are sold, they're going to be sold for a lot of money. I didn't happen to see how much they were valuated at, but it's probably more than 3 billion and change. And also, I don't even mean this to say that Jody Allen has been like the worst owner. I actually think she's been a reasonable owner. I think that the critiques of her as an owner are pretty overblown, frankly. Like the Blazers have first couple of years, like they did spend a little bit of money. Those teams that were put around Damian Lillard right before he left, I think were some of the strongest supporting cast that he had since LaMarcus Aldridge left. I don't think you can question that. It just that, that time had come. And they've been making investments in their training facility and some other stuff. So having said that, I am a really big fan of organizational clarity. So something that I do in another hat that I wear is as an organizational consultant, and I do like kind of organizational development and structure and culture work. And something that comes up again and again and again, no matter what country you're in, no matter what type of work that you do, whether it's basketball or you're an accountant, people really appreciate knowing what their role is, and they want to know the role of the team that they're working for and the organization they're working for. They want to know where they're going and why and how what they do fits into that. And I just think the Blazers have this organizational vision cloudiness as long as we have this owner who is legally required to at some point sell the team as part of Paul Allen's will. And when he passed away, his estate was very clear. You need to sell these assets. The team was one of those assets that needs to be sold at some point. So all to say, I'm not saying it's happening this year because it probably won't. But this isn't where I was expecting to go. But you were just talking about like ownership and trading Luka Doncic. And I'm like, well, good thing it's not us. I'm like, you know what? It'd be great to have some clarity about where the team. So that's mine. And again, no real shade. I just want some clarity as a fan.
I think, yeah. I don't see any disagreement with that. Well, and like we've gotten like little drips and dribbles of clarity. Like when they traded Damian Lillard, it was like, okay, that's a little bit of a clarity. But we still have the GM and the coach that was originally hired, at the beginning. So we still have people who aren't like brand new. And then you look like what a new owner did in Phoenix, came in and like did all kinds of things. We might be going, did we really want that? But I totally hear what you're saying, because, at least the guy in Phoenix, he had, his vision was spend as much money as possible to get like the, best people that I think that I like the most, and we'll see what happens. But at least like it was like you could see what they were doing.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm also of the mind that like a lot of leadership starts at the very, very top. Like I'll say like I don't know, like so I know that they don't have their hand in all of the decisions, but like they pick the people they trust. And you could still be in the organization, but your voice may be very different under a different owner than the previous one. We still have, I mean, Paul hired Neil Olshey, and Neil Olshey brought Joe Cronin. Like Joe Cronin is still left over from that era.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach was hired under the old GM, and there's still a lot of like it's hard to turn over an organization unless you're gonna like do like what Phoenix did, which was to turn just a bunch of people over all at the same time. But I kind of have been thinking about like when I think our team could be sold. And again, I also don't think Jody has been a bad owner, especially for somebody who didn't explicitly say, I want to do this thing. You know, like
Yeah, right.
she inherited the responsibility. And for somebody who inherited the responsibility, whose dream it like wasn't to own a basketball team, like she's been really great for us. And I think that it says a lot that Damian Lillard still really liked and respected her on his way out the door. Um,
Yeah.
and so, you know, I've been very happy in this interim period, but also I'm also looking at what's next. Um, and I'll say like some like you know you're talking about the Celtics. The Celtics, I think that domino is going to fall first in ownership. Um, they're selling high, obviously, because they just won a championship. They're a very old NBA brand with a very developed fan base. Like there's a ton of money to be made in the Celtics. The Blazers are a little bit of a different story in some ways, but I can see us being sold in the next few years as we're developing. And also like there'll be some money to spend in the next few years that like owners often like to do. They like to walk in the door and make a splash and be like, look, I'm here and this is my vision. So I could see that happening, probably not this year, but in the next few years for sure. Okay, I also
So wait a minute, really quick, one last question. Do we want to like pool our money together and like make a bid or what? Like we all
yeah,
have like $1 billion sitting around, right?
I have
yeah,
to wait till the
definitely.
beginning of next month.
I need to cash out what I have in the stock market first, but then yes, that
Okay,
100%.
good. Yeah. Glad we're on the same page.
So I also didn't really, I brought like 1.5 things. If like my second thing is not fully baked, but like I've thought about it through this conversation and I'm ready to let it fly half baked or whatever. Um, and you can disagree with me here. I am interested to see the young guys fail. And here is why.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Chauncey Billups has protected them from a lot of failure that can sometimes be very formative because not all positive experiences are what we need to develop as people and in our professions. And sometimes like failure is important for teaching us lessons. And Tara and I have talked on this podcast quite a bit about how Chauncey likes to like not roll out Scoot too many minutes so he doesn't fail. He wants to like slow roll these guys' development and not put them in positions where they have too much on their plate and can fail large. I think it's fine for us to fail large. And I think that if some of these guys that have we've shot so like last year Scoot was injured through a lot of the season. Shaden was basically out. These are guys that like didn't necessarily weren't necessarily healthy at the end of the season, so we don't know how much he might have otherwise played them at to the end of the season because they're young and healthy. If they're both young and healthy and some of these other guys are young and healthy and are we going to let him see them fail a little bit as we get to the end of the season and we know we're not going to be like a playoff team. But anyway, I'm just curious if we're going to see that play out. I don't know how much he would let them fail. He has been very like a little bit of a helicopter parent in some ways. But you know, let him loose when he is no longer coaching for his next job, which I think that at some point, like he'll stop
Yeah.
this trying to have these weird winning streaks or whatever. Like we might see them get to fail in really interesting ways, and maybe that's really great for their development too, not just protecting them the entire way.
There's a term that Tara, you had mentioned Nate Duncan in the Dunked On podcast to explore the studio space that they tend to use a lot, which that is what comes to mind, Rose, as you're bringing that up. Yeah, like let them try stuff, do some limit testing, like see how how hard you can do X skill or Y thing and look goofy doing it and yeah, take something from it. I also understand, like, just to argue against myself, there's you don't want someone to like be so uncomfortable that that they're beyond their growth edge and they're kind of floating in complete discombobulation land. But I do agree that the and it's weird to say as a fan you want your team to win, that we do need to be prioritizing finding out what people can do, what we have, different combinations of players, and not necessarily just trying to win games. And I totally agree with you that failure is a huge and necessary part of that. So yeah, I will +1 your opinion.
I think that failure with a framework is a good thing. And what I mean by that is like the opportunity to learn from the failure and not just like go out there, lose, show up the next day, play another game, lose, show up the next
Get
day,
out there
play.
and fail.
Right. So I totally get what you're saying. And it's kind of why I'm sort of glad that there are going to be vets sitting there on the bench. I've really liked watching this year, Scoot like take on a little bit more of the leadership role. We just saw an article come out from The Athletic about he and Tumani and sort of how they've teamed up and they really want to, be leaders. And so I think that like to be a leader, you have to have the experience of leading people through something that's really hard. And in the past few years, the end of the season has just been like get through and see how many losses you can rack up. And I
Yeah.
feel like at the end of this season, what I hope is it's not that. What I hope is like we've all been talking about, it's Donovan Clingan. We know that you're not in shape to play 31 minutes, but you're playing 31 minutes anyway. And, figure out how to play and make decisions when you're exhausted and you can't think anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that could be as long as it's still those guys playing. I think they're well positioned. It's I don't want anybody injured, and this is a very pro DeAndre Ayton podcast. We have been consistently big fans of what
Yes.
DeAndre Ayton has done, and if you think about the last two seasons or last season, like how bad it would have been if they didn't have DeAndre Ayton in there, and it was already bad. So I'm not wishing, an injury or a worse injury on him, but I think it will be valuable having him sit there and be able to be there and cheer for these guys and be able to talk about what's going on. Like, we've talked about player coaches. Like DeAndre Ayton, I'm not saying is a player coach, but he's somebody that that Klingon could turn to in addition to like the coaching staff about like, well, what would you have done? How would you have handled that? So yes to all of these things. Let's just let them play. But I'm totally fine with vets sitting out. I'm actually even totally fine with Anthony being in because somebody. I mean, I would like to see Scoot's minutes go up, but like you got to have some people in there who have the experience of knowing what they're doing, so
You,
everything doesn't fall apart.
to your point, you do need some semblance of structure, like in order to do. It's like, I don't know. I think about the analogy of like playing in a sandbox, and it's like you can do whatever you want with the sand, but the sandbox is only yay big, and that is just having some structure around it. One specific thing is we're thinking about where I'd like to see more failure. I would love to see Scoot Henderson specifically fail more at trying to manufacture points. And what I mean by that is when you watch Damian Lillard play, one thing that you could always rely on Damian Lillard for was to manufacture bolt points by driving and taking contact and exaggerating said contact. And he's a 90+% free throw shooter, and la-di-da is going to the line 12, 14 times a game. And that's awesome. Would love to see that from Scoot Henderson. I think we've seen more of that this year, but it would be really cool. Like, all right, Scoot, the next 3 games, just get in, just figure out how to draw fouls. Like, that's it. Like, get an offensive foul, like blow the layup, like, but try to figure that out. I think would be really cool. Just one specific thing.
That's
Mhm.
like what set off their success this season, in my opinion. That's what Denny Avdia did to get this team playing a little bit more aggressively at the start of this, like the win streak or whatever you want to call it. Like, that's exactly what he was doing. He was getting to the line 10 to 12 times, like 10 to 12 shots like a game, and he played super aggressively. And he generated some turnovers in there, but he also created a lot more opportunity for all the 4 other guys on the floor. And so I think there's some truth to that because like Denny can do that, but other guys have to be able to do that too because he's not going to play like all the minutes. And it's funny because I heard Kevin Calabro say this on the broadcast, and it hadn't really been publicly talked about that much, but like he's been injured. Like his hand has been injured. Like Denny, like I saw in some
Oh,
of the
wow.
videos that like he's wearing like a brace on his hand in practice, And I heard Calabro say that like or maybe it was Lamar, but says like he's been dealing with an injury and he wouldn't say it bothers him, but it's obviously bothering him. Um, but I appreciate that they still let him play like some minutes, but not big minutes, even when they might have otherwise used him more when he's playing well. Like so at least I think they're being a little bit more cautious with some of these guys' health. And so to your point, Tara, maybe we're not going to see like big horrible injuries like slow this team down. Um, but yeah, so some failure would be nice, and I also think that that win streak enables some failure because it also gives these guys a foundation of winning to like fall back on and be like, I know you guys know how to win. Now try something new to elevate all the different ways and diversify the tools in your toolbox for winning because I know you can do it.
Yeah, I super agree that that win streak was important for that very reason. Because, and we can all be like, well, they were on back-to-backs, blah, 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 blah. And we can make a bunch of excuses. But the fact is nobody expected them to do that. And they went out and they did it. And they did it as a team. And they did it by everybody having different big nights and, doing it as a collaborative rather than just like on the back of Damian Lillard scoring 62 points. It'd be nice.
Tara, it's time for you to share your last
Yeah.
thing. But
okay.
Before we do that, I want to say one thing. We do have a question to address that we got on Blue Sky. So I'm going to bring that question up after we do your last thing.
Okay, I'll make my last thing quick. The other thing that I'm looking forward to for the end of the year is the W.H.A.T awards, because we have some really strong contenders for our awards. In particular, Blazer Legend. We have players who used to play on our team out there doing legendary, amazing things, like what you brought up at the very beginning, Brandon, about Damian Lillard offering the scholarship to bring people to where? Portland
State University.
I love that. So I think
Really
we've got a number of Blazer Legend nominees. We've got most improved Blazer. We've got a lot. We actually have a lot of things, I think, guys, that we could talk about in ways that they've improved their games. And most valuable Blazer. I think we're going to have a great conversation. And so I'm just looking forward to that because in the past it hasn't been as like contentious. There haven't been that many contenders. Competitive. Yeah, there we go. There haven't been that many competitors. It hasn't been as competitive. So I'm looking forward to that for the end of the year.
Yeah, same. I'm also, I told Tara, I said I was like, I always say this every year. I'm going to make the awards this year and I'm going to send them to the Moda Center and see if anyone will post it. We'll see. Okay, we have one question. We have one question. It is from friend of the pod, Julio. Julio asked us, he starts, I love a good rivalry. Are we developing any team or player rivalries around the league? Any you've noticed? Any you're hoping for specifically?
Oh, that's so hard when a team is building because
you wanted to say bad and you didn't.
I said building. Like, I that never even crossed my mind.
I thought bad then. Okay. I projected it into
because I think we could be like, oh, the Golden Warriors. The Golden Warriors don't care about us. Oh, the Lakers. They don't care about us. Oh, name a team. And most of them don't care about us. I would say the closest rivalry we've got going right now is Miami.
Oh, yeah. At least the fan bases. That's for sure.
Fan rivalries and team rivalries are maybe different.
Oh, yeah. Was this a fan or team rivalry question? I should have paid attention.
Well,
closer attention.
He said any team or player rivalries around the league. So it could be individual players.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Well, sorry, Rose, what were you going to say?
No, I'm thinking. Go ahead.
Part of where my brain went is where somebody actually responded to say Jamal Murray, which is pretty short-lived rivalry where Delano Banton was saying some stuff to him, and then Jamal Murray is like, "I'll score 50 points on you, bye." So that was pretty funny. I would like so. Then from that, have I seen anything develop? No, Tara, I think that you're correct that when your team is developing, it's difficult to develop a rivalry because it's like who cares? I would like to see, so I'll take this question as what I would like to see. I would love to see the Blazers-Lakers rivalry come back. I think that one is such a delicious, it's so much fun to dislike the Los Angeles Lakers for so many reasons because of how Los Angeles and Portland are different culturally, because the Lakers seem to fall ass backwards into franchise players, where the Blazers seem to not do that. And just what the cities represent and the size difference in population and all that stuff. It's a lot of fun to have a Portland Los Angeles rivalry. We've seen it in the late 80s, early 90s. We saw it again in the early aughts, and it would be fun for that to come back.
I have one,
Okay.
which is far more like future speculative than probably this question is asking, but I want a Seattle Portland rivalry. Like that's what I really want
Yeah.
to see. I would love to have that rivalry. We already have it. I already hate that city.
Yeah.
Like, hello? Like, give them a team for me to hate too. Like, that's what I want.
Oh, I feel that with every fiber of my body.
Yeah.
I would say to address what Brandon was saying, I would love to hate the Lakers. I just want the Blazers to be more of a rival to that team. I think right now with LeBron and Luka, it's going to be hard. Although Tamani Kamara can really make people hate having to show up for work that day, and I love that about Tamani. So I don't know which one would come first, if Portland or Seattle. Both of those are wonderful rivalries. I'm curious about like which one might come first. I feel like the Seattle one might actually come first because it might take that long for the Blazers to get good enough to be rivals for the Lakers.
I am curious if there's going to be some like player rivalries that emerge as Tamani Kamara becomes a more like developed NBA player, because if you see guys who have his style of play, people find ways to have a rivalry with you, you know? And he doesn't have the mouth yet to match what some of those other guys do. Like Dylan Brooks put on full on his villain hood and like went crazy and talks into microphones and says the wildest stuff. Like that's not what Tamani Kamara does yet, but he might. And also, even if he doesn't, guys might find ways to like, you know, like to turn him into that anyway. So I'm curious if he gets like some player rivalries directed his way as he becomes a far more like established guy in the league. You know, this is like the first year I think everybody took notice of him in the ways that like Portland was talking about him last year, but the rest of the NBA is talking about him now. And in a year or two, are there going to be individual rivalries with Tamani Kamara?
It wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't think NBA players appreciate having their shot taken away from them, and I don't think they appreciate when they're trying to do something off the dribble and Tamani Kamara is drawing yet another charge, even if he's not talking about it. Just that will at some point get under someone's skin, and it's going to be really fun when it does. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
He talked a little bit. I saw that there was some video of him talking a little bit of smack to Anthony Edwards in one game.
Oh, good. Yay.
But they're buddies.
Yeah.
Oh, are they really? Okay.
They went to it was Tumani who played with Anthony Edwards, right?
I think so. They have a prior relationship, and so because he was talking, because like the smack that he talked was like, you know, I've been doing this since college, or you know that, like, like it wasn't super spicy or anything. It wasn't, you know, but I'm just saying, people turn those guys into villains whether they like it or not, and so some guys lean into it like Dylan Brooks does, and some guys maybe don't lean into it as much, like maybe like Marcus Smart or something, but like, you know, people take notice. Every other fan base hates a guy like that, and then the fan base that they're a part of, they would die for them.
Were we talking about Anthony Edwards or Anthony Davis?
Anthony Edwards.
Okay, it is Anthony Edwards. They did go to school together.
Yes. Anthony Davis is too old.
I was just like, wait a minute, was I talking about a completely different Anthony? Because I was trying so hard not to say Anthony. So
I knew Tumani was like an older rookie, but like to be as old as Anthony Davis would be.
Yeah, I know. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure I didn't say Anthony Davis and like really confuse everybody. Any other potential rivals?
Confusing. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say better. I feel like I do confuse Jabari Walker, and I will write Jabari Parker, and I do it every time, and then people in the comments are like, Brandon, I'm like, I'm sorry. Anyway, Tara, wait, have you shared your rivalries, Tara? I don't think we've heard from you. Have we?
Um,
I don't think we did.
well, no, remember I said that I didn't think the Blazers were good enough to have
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay.
team rivalries, and I'm trying to
Wait,
think
cop out
about.
answer. No, 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 no. That was just to buy you some time. So now you gotta bring some heat.
Well, I mean, I think everybody knows where I stand on the Golden Warriors, and oh, but I'm trying to think about player rivals that might pop up, and I keep going back to DeAndre Ayton, but I just don't see him like having like a adversarial relationship with anybody but maybe like a former coach or people who did him wrong.
What about
You
like
know, I guess there's Brandon Ingram and Anthony. We always have that. Um, yeah,
That's a yucky rivalry though.
I know. We'll just move on from that. And Shaden is too like
Canadian?
low key to have, yeah, like a fierce thing going on. I if Delano Banton wants to continue to trash talk folks, I'm all for that. I hope we get tons of Delano Banton trash talking other teams for the rest of the season. That's what I'm looking forward to.
The Suns fans have a rivalry with DeAndre Ayton, despite the fact that, whatever. He's just living his best life out here.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Suns fans thinking that getting Jusuf Nurkic was going to solve some problem for them. Have fun on the Hornets, man. Sorry. Jusuf Nurkic is a nice guy. Everything I've actually heard about him is he's a great human being. Jusuf Nurkic also, I'm impressed that he has pouted his way into the NBA's cellar in Charlotte. And again, no shade on the Charlotte Hornets, who have probably the best colors of any team in the NBA. That teal is like my color, so I'm all for it. But yeah, Jusuf Nurkic.
That is not covering up what you said about Jusuf Nurkic.
No, I'm just
not distracting us from what you said about Jusuf Nurkic.
Not that this is a Jusuf Nurkic podcast, but like had some consternation in Denver, played really well in Portland, had some, when he would get benched or something would happen, he would pout, and and then he goes to Phoenix, and then he's like, I haven't talked to Mike Budenholzer in 2 months. Like, bro, what are you doing? You're a talented NBA player, and also like people have been flushed out of the league for being perpetually malcontented, which is sort of what feels like maybe happening to Jusuf Nurkic. So again, no shade on him as a person. But to go back to the Suns I don't know. Yeah. Am I digging myself a hole here? Have I walked into a Jusuf Nurkic trap?
Oh, we've had a lot of conversations about players who chose basketball and players who basketball chose them, and the different paths that they take through the league, and how important their support and coaching and teammates are to their success. And I don't think Jusuf Nurkic's recent teams have been set up. They got to points where they weren't set up as much. I'm not saying it's all I'm not saying he doesn't take any account or shouldn't take any accountability for what things talked about. But I also don't think it's just that he got disgruntled and decided to not play. I think it's because he didn't have the people around him to figure out how to unlock him like the Blazers did for a while. Didn't last forever, but they did unlock him for a while in a way that other teams haven't.
There's also some... Go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was going to say the other thing about Jusuf Nurkic is that he is somebody who I don't think is like a simple personality to unlock. And I think that the NBA's approach to unlocking players is we give you someone who's competent and you're supposed to respond, and that not everyone who's competent can connect with every single type of player. And if your goal is to get the most out of your players, sometimes you have to meet that player where they are and give them what they need to grow, not just give everybody the exact same thing and expect them all to grow similarly. Nurkic is somebody who I think is a little bit more of an orchid, so to speak. And he needs a certain type of conditions and he needs a certain type of
Water
care.
sensitive.
And he is beautiful when you get him there. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like he's beautiful when you get him there, but he takes a different kind of thing than like scattering a bunch of wildflowers in a flower bed and just letting nature take its course, or giving them a little bit water here and there and some fertilizer in the spring and whatever. Like they're not the same thing. And if you want the most out of your players, you have to be willing to go that extra mile to find out what everybody needs separate so that they can all grow into a beautiful garden together. There you go. Wrapped it up.
Very good.
Beautiful.
And I would say DeAndre Ayton's a little bit like that, and I would say Donovan Clingan
Yes.
is different.
Different. Actually,
Yes.
okay. Because you said Ayton, I just want to like you've closed the book, but I'm adding like an addendum, or like I'm adding like a loose sheet of paper that has like the date on it. It says we're adding something into it. Connor and I talked on our podcast, go to WeLikeTheLasers.com, about DeAndre Ayton being maybe more of a human than many NBA players. I think Jusuf Nurkic falls into the same category, where to be an NBA player, you need this incredible amount of discipline, of of athleticism, obviously, of competitive drive, emotional regulation, discipline in your sleep habits and your eating habits. And that most people, me included, even if I had the perfect NBA body, I would fail at that for all sorts of reasons. And there's a reason why the NBA only has, 400 some players in it. That those are the top of the top. That's a combination of the athleticism and all those other skills. I do believe that like the Jusuf Nurkic's and the DeAndre Aytons of the world are literally just more like me and more like a normal human being who, when put in that environment, it would be really, really hard. Plus, you're being scrutinized. People are like taping what you're doing and then talking. We're talking about it. I'm talking about it. Weird. How weird would it be if I like woke up tomorrow and someone's like, man, I saw Brandon at work and the way that he was running that Reconnecting Communities grant meeting was like really bullshit. And his Steve A.
Totally
Smith is
checked
talking
out.
about so weird. Yeah, it'd be so weird, right? But like that's so all to say, like I did my little thing on Jusuf Nurkic, but and also, right? So there's my loose sheet of paper in the report.
Love it. It has been slipped into the front cover. Okay, go ahead, Rose.
I need a moment. Can we pause for a second? I have to pee so bad.
Of course.
That stays in, but yes.
Okay, everybody. I think it's time for us to get to our takes. It sounds like everybody's had great takes here today, but as Tara knows, I like to have one at the end of the show. So we're going to go into takes. It is February 16th. It's All-Star weekend. The All-Star game is going to happen later this afternoon. Brandon, what's your take?
Can this remind me again? What is the parameter of
It can be anything.
take?
Anything. Ideally, not a bunch of curse words because it would like ruin
Yeah.
the ambiance with all the bleeps, but yes.
Does Audra listen to the pod? Do you have to like make sure that the language is like
No, she doesn't.
okay?
And
it
plus
doesn't like
we're-
randomly
we're
come on
very-
when she's trying to take a nap or anything.
We're very PG.
Yes.
Okay, I have a take. It's apropos of nothing that we have discussed.
That is
today.
totally fine. So is mine.
But my take is that snow is good. Since I have moved to New England, we are now in New Haven, Connecticut. We've gotten snow, and every time I have like Cassie goes to bed at 9:00 and I will like bundle up and I'll go out on a snow walk. It's so much fun. It's so pretty. And it's also really interesting. And I know that people who live in places that have regular snow already knew this. I lived in Oregon my whole life and a year in New Zealand. I never knew this. There's just so much more social infrastructure and preparedness for said snow. So the snow comes and it's nighttime and the snow starts tapering off. And then all of a sudden, from the darkness, you hear it's the hum of all of the plows and the people who are salting and they're scraping and they're plowing. And then by the time that you get up tomorrow morning, magically it's all clear. It's still 26 degrees outside, but I can walk from the front of the building to my car without slipping and busting my ass. It's amazing. It's like this whole ecosystem of snow management that we do not have in Portland. And it's so funny because it snowed, I don't know, last week it was like 5 inches, that's a decent amount no matter where you are, really. I was just thinking, if that had happened in Portland, the city would have been crippled. Things would have come to a halt. It wouldn't have just been DeAndre Ayton unable to get to the game. It would have been everybody. So all to say, though, especially when you're prepared for it, I think snow is good. That's my take.
Love it.
Love it. And also, I don't know if you guys noticed, you saw we got new plows. So Portland got 5 plows. I think.
5.
Yeah, and before that,
Can
we
you
only
name
had
some of them
3.
for me, please?
Plowy McPlowface.
Because the internet can't get over that joke that was only kind of funny at the beginning, and now it's just tired.
Oh, it made me laugh, but okay.
Is one of them Mr. Plow?
No, one of them, there was so there's the Darcel did not make the plow name list that I saw.
That's too bad.
Yeah, and one of them was
Okay, I got him.
okay, go ahead.
Should I read him? Okay. Salt and Thaw.
Yeah, there's Salt and Straw.
The Big Leplowski.
Yeah.
Nice.
Burnside. I like that one.
I do too.
Beverly Cleary.
Oh.
And Plowy McPlowface. I think those are
I
all
think
great.
that's pretty good. I think you could do a lot worse than
I
that.
like Burnside.
I am a firm believer in things that are like regionally, like for us, not just for the world. So because like Salt and Thaw is perfect, except for we don't use salt here. But you know, that's like something that like the people like think of when they think of Portland, even now that like the Salt and Straw has gone other places, like it started here. Yeah, it's good. I'll say my daughter would agree with you, Brandon. Snow, great.
Snow is good. Snow is always good.
So it's always good as long as people can be safe and everyone has power and
yeah. Good point. Ice not good. Snow good. Ice no good.
Yes. Tara, what's your take?
Okay, this take was inspired by another athletic article, but I didn't read that article. I just read the tweets or the blue skies. So take that into consideration. Cooper Flagg has the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever and return to Duke for a second season. I just thinking of all of the chaos that because he made a comment in a thing that he would like to go back for a second season, and just like all of the chaos that would ensue after that is mind-boggling. Just think about it for like 3 seconds and you're like, I could spend all day thinking about that. So my take is that Cooper Flagg could do the funniest thing in the world and decide to go back to Duke for a second year and cause more chaos than I mean, we're seeing a lot of chaos in other places, so there's that. But like more chaos in the NBA than any one person has ever created. Yes.
Does anyone know how the schedule lines up between teams getting their lottery position and when college students are allowed to like go back?
Oh,
so could
that's
he
all
like
laid out?
Could he look at the teams in which positions and then decide?
I don't think so.
So
no? Okay, darn.
But I also don't think so. So I don't know if there's an actual set time though, because it's all about when you hire an agent.
But then you have till a certain day that you can like say, never mind.
You can like, but it's like there's parameters around like how you can hire. Like if once you have like an agent that represents you, like you're considered pro or something. Like, and then you can hire like you can like do like some exploratory stuff. There's like an in between period, but like I think that it's all about when you decide to hire somebody to represent you.
They've made some changes where you can hire somebody and then decide not to, and then unhire them or something like that. So I'm looking that up.
So I say I think it's flexible. I don't like so it's like he can stay like he can very much say like, oh, I'm going back to Duke, I'm going back to Duke, I'm going back to Duke until he's not.
They
Um,
have to do it 60 days prior to the draft, which would be what, 30 days prior to the lottery? Anyway, okay,
So they
we'll
can't.
investigate
They
this.
they
We will
probably have
investigate
accounted
this
for that,
further.
right? Like that would
yeah.
be gaming the system if it's like, ooh, the Wizards. No, like yeah. So, but that would be very funny.
So that's my take.
Love it.
What about you, Rose?
Okay, this is my take. I was thinking about how they did the Blazer glasses this year and like they were a hit. And I thought it was weird that they only did three, but whatever. Neither here nor there. But this is my take. The Blazers need to bring back a bobblehead because I think that Donovan Clingan would be an exceptional bobblehead. He has like kind
He
of like big ears
kind of
and
looks like a bobblehead
like
already.
yeah, like I think that Donovan Clingan would make an exceptional bobblehead to like restart the bobblehead movement. That's my take.
You have a bobblehead, Rose, behind
Right
you.
here? Yes, I
Is that
do.
Sabas? Is
This
it
is
Sabonis?
Sabas. Yes, and
Nice.
then
Yep.
right here is a pop. This is a Damian Lillard Funko Pop next to Sabas right here.
Love it.
Yeah.
A well-supported take, a take that you've demonstrated how serious you are about it by having the bobblehead in the shot. A plus.
Yeah, I don't think everybody makes a good bobblehead. I like that's the thing that
Yeah.
I like we saw that Chauncey bobblehead, it looks cursed. Like we some people don't make good bobbleheads. Donovan Clingan would make a great bobblehead.
I do agree. I agree with that.
Might even actually
Cursed
look like
Chauncey.
him. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it might look like him because he kind of has like a short neck, you
He does.
know?
He looks a little cartoony to begin with. So, yeah, it translates into a cartoony figurine situation.
Yeah. Not everybody, but him, I think he would make a great bobblehead. I can imagine a good Scoot bobblehead.
Hmm.
Shaden would be hard. His hair would look wrong. I don't know why. Like
It'd be tough.
it would
Do
be
either
tough.
of you have a 3D printer?
No, but my
No.
husband wants to buy one.
Well, there he goes.
So when your husband buys one, which he definitely should for this reason alone, he could print a bobblehead. You can make so much cool stuff on those things. It's unbelievable.
I will he is a diligent listener to this podcast. My daughter is not. My husband is. So Tyler, Brandon has an idea for you. And so you should listen to him. And I will say, Brandon, one of the jokes that I have with my husband is that like you're kind of an alternative version, like alternative world version of him, because you make the same face when you post pictures of yourself. That face that you make with the big smile.
Wait, what face do I make?
Oh, you don't know? Go back and look at your pictures and see it, my friend.
Oh, you have to. Okay, so make the face for us, for our audience needs to see you making the face I make when I post pictures.
You post pictures of yourself like this.
Yeah, I do. That's true. That's a good point. Mouth wide open, eyes big, looking really excited. Yeah, that is a good point. Damn it.
Oh, that's
So
hilarious.
you and my
Nailed
husband
it.
both make that face.
And someday somebody may someday make a Donovan Clingan bobblehead inspired by the 3D printer that Brandon suggested. I love this. I can't wait to see this come to pass. Brandon,
Tyler, it sounds like Rose said that you are allowed to now get one and should get one. So consider that. There you go. Time to get one.
I cannot wait to see the results of this. Brandon, you've been so generous with your time today. We know that you're like on the East Coast time and you're like hungry and want to go get some food. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. Can you tell folks where they can find your work?
Yes, they can find my work and my audaciously weird looking selfies at WeLikeTheBlazers.com or follow me on Blue Sky. I'm still calling them tweets. You can find my tweets on Blue Sky just because it's like Band-Aid, right? It's not bandage. It's part of the nomenclature now. So anyway, find me on Blue Sky, search for my name, and then also look for my work on BlazersEdge.com. You'll find me there too.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks to everyone who is listening to us and supports us. We so appreciate you. You can find me at TCB Biggs on Blue Sky. You can find Rose at Rose L. Harding on Blue Sky. And you can find the We Have a Take podcast at We Have a Take. Thanks again and go Blazers.